Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Club World Cup Fantasy Matchday 7 is here. Yes, it's the final round of the competition. In today's episode, as usual, I'll be looking through my Matchday 7 team selection, 2 potential transfer strategies, some of the best ways you can gain rank in the final, as well as looking back at Matchday 6. So, for the last time, let's jump into it. So you can see that I only had one playing goalkeeper this week. I left Weatherton, he left the competition last week. I just didn't see a point in replacing him at this point, and that turned out to be okay because obviously Donnarumma kept his 5th clean sheet of the competition. From 6 games, he's been such a solid asset for me, and that is pretty much the same as Hakimi, right? Hakimi's got to go down in fantasy Hall of Fame for me. Definitely deserves a shirt on my intro graphic. Anyway, but for now, 20 points from captaincy, fantastic. It was his 4th consecutive double-digit return. Clean sheets, attacking returns. Hakimi's been probably the best asset in the entire game for me. My backline did fairly well, actually. Obviously, the Chelsea double-up both kept the clean sheet. I probably should have gone a little bit heavier on the Chelsea defence in the end, but, the double-up was fine. A double-up which wasn't fine was obviously Real Madrid's. I brought Trent in for a hit, which didn't work out because he didn't actually play the game at all. I think he was injured. Garcia did play. In fact, it was probably a good job Trent didn't play because Garcia ended on -1 points anyway. So, if anything, they've caused me more damage than what they could have given me. So, yeah, moving into midfield, it was very underwhelming as usual. Kvaratskhelia again, very underwhelming as usual for the past 3 matches. He's done absolutely nothing. PSG scored 4 goals. Kvaratskhelia failed to get among them, which I found quite surprising, but maybe not because of his form. He's not been great at all. Dembele, on the other hand, was my transfer in this week. Very, very happy that I brought him in this week. He got a goal. Probably a good job I did bring him in, actually. Otherwise it probably would have been a big red arrow. But Dembele scored and assisted, so he ended up on 10 points, which was obviously good. I got blanks from my Chelsea duo, Palmer and Neto. I thought Palmer, would be involved in goals, but that just wasn't the case. Obviously, Neto, also blank. Both managed 3 points. It's a good win for Chelsea. It was just a shame their main attackers couldn't, get involved. Arias of Fluminense didn't do anything at all. Obviously, he was one of their best players, but he just couldn't breach the Chelsea defence, no matter what he could do. Chelsea were quite dominant in that game. Moving into my forward line, actually, talking of the Chelsea attackers, it was another new signing for me. There's a pattern of new transfers doing well for me, and João Pedro was probably the standout. He scored 2 goals. One of them was absolutely amazing. Obviously, me being a Chelsea fan, was very, very pleased with the brace overall, in terms of fantasy and in real life. So very happy with João Pedro's 13 points. I wasn't quite happy with Real Madrid's blanks. So obviously Mbappe and Garcia started the game, but they blanked. In the end, though, I ended up on 69 points, which didn't mean much of a move in terms of rank, and we'll jump into that now. So as you can see, it wasn't a bad round for me. I actually finished the round, as I mentioned, on 69 points, which resulted in just a 5-place red arrow. Now, to get a 5-place red arrow at this point in the competition is very good. It kind of almost guarantees a top 100 finish for me, which is absolutely brilliant. If you offered me a top 100 place prior to the competition start, I would have snatched your hand off. So I'm really, really happy to be around 61st. Obviously, I'm not in the running to win it at this point. I'm fairly, quite the way off. I think I'm 40, 50 points, but I would absolutely love to get into the top 50, top 25, maybe even the top 10. There are more milestones that I can try and break into. So yeah, rank 61st, really happy with that. So let's just now take a look at my team selection for the round ahead. So, guys, you can see that I've only got one playing goalkeeper this week, and that is Donnarumma. I don't intend to change that unless I've got an abundance of transfers and want to make my starting 11 look really, really pretty and bring in Sanchez for no reason. But, I think it depends on kind of, strategy as well. If you're bulking up on the Chelsea defence or bulking up on the PSG defence, that kind of determines which way you go. I mean, you could play it safe, but you in terms of a mix of both defenses, but you're probably going to stay in the same spot, which might be what you want. But at this point, for me, Donnarumma is my man in goal. As a Chelsea fan, backing against Chelsea this week is very, very painful. It's extremely difficult, but it's something that I am used to in fantasy games, unfortunately. So for that reason, Donnarumma, he's been an absolutely fantastic asset. He's been exceptional. Returns nearly every single week. I've not had to worry about having another goalkeeper because he keeps on returning. So for me, Donnarumma, he stays between the sticks this week. So in defence, you can see that I've lost two already. Obviously Garcia and Trent. Trent might not have played anyway, even if he did advance, but Garcia obviously won't play. So they're two players that I need to think about if I'm looking to make transfers. I'm going to cover my strategy in terms of this week further on in this episode. So make sure you stick around. But for now, this is the way that I've got set up. Hakimi obviously makes the cut. He will not move, regardless of my strategy, whether I'm backing a Chelsea bulk defence, a PSG stack. Hakimi will not move from my team. He's been the most consistent asset in the game. He's been absolutely brilliant throughout. Amazing more recently. So he's an absolute shoo-in no matter what, unless he's somehow injured before the game. Now, I've also got a Chelsea doublet. Again, entirely dependent on strategy this week. If you're going big at the back for Chelsea, then you want loads of Chelsea players. If you're going big at the back at the PSG, you want loads of PSG defenders. So as it stands, yes, I do have two Chelsea defenders. I obviously have Tosin, who should play this week, and I also have Cucurella, who will probably almost certainly play this week. So I don't really have to worry about them not playing. It's only really Garcia and Trent. But that is my back five for now. That will almost definitely change. In fact, it's guaranteed to change. So we'll discuss that in my strategy further on. So moving into midfield, obviously you can see that Arias is on the bench already. He's exited the competition with Fluminense via Chelsea in the previous round. He has been a frustrating asset outside of his direct free kick goal in the group stage. He hasn't done anything at all. Quite frustrating actually, because I do think that he would have been a player to get me at the ranks amongst the top managers. So yeah, in terms of my starting 11, I think Dembele is a must this week. I have no intention of selling him actually ahead of Matchday 7. He scored against Bayern at the death of the game, didn't he? He got a goal and an assist against Real Madrid. Two goals and assist against Real Madrid and Bayern. You can't really argue against. You can't really back against either, right? So for me, he's an absolute shoo-in. Kvaratskhelia, obviously less convincing, more frustrating as of late, but we know what type of player he is. He can break down any defense. He can score from chance. He can create his own chances, score from low XG. He's pretty much got it all as a player. Kvaratskhelia. He's also likely to stay on the pitch the longest out of the attackers. We have seen that as of late, especially. So I just think keeping him there just in case is a wise decision. Now, in terms of Chelsea, I think Palmer, you have to own 3 Chelsea players. You have to have 3 Chelsea players in your starting lineup this week. You can only have 8 PSG players max. So for me, Palmer is an absolute essential. 2 assists and a goal in his last 3 matches. He's on pans. He can be a big game player. He showed that in the Conference League recently, Conference League final against Real Betis. I know it's completely different opposition, but he is capable of stuff like that. Neto I'm more on the fence with, obviously, he scored 3 goals, but he hasn't got anything, to set him apart. He hasn't got pans like Palmer. He doesn't feel as solid. He's been one of our players of the tournament, but sometimes struggle to put his liveliness into actual output in terms of goals and assists. Now, he's so attacking. He's so lively that I would not be surprised if he scored or assisted in the final at all. But I just think if there's a player that you're willing to take out, maybe to get a differential in, to maybe, try and gain a bit of rank, I do think out of those 4 that I've just mentioned, Neto does feel like maybe the most sacrificable. I'm not too sure. I'm on the fence with Neto. But for now, that is my midfield. So you can also see that I've lost 2 forwards this week. Forwards, I don't think you have to replace this week. There aren't many viable forward options. Chelsea only start with one forward, usually Liam Delap's back, but I still think João Pedro is going to play. Jackson just seems to be completely out of the fold at the moment. There's even rumours that he's going to be leaving in the summer, which obviously backs the fact up that he really might not play. So in general, obviously PSG don't really play with forwards. I know Goncalo Ramos comes off the bench sometimes, but it's very rare that he actually does that. He did in the last game and score, but I seriously doubt he will be doing that in the final. It's only because the match was so won against Real Madrid, they 4-0. It was very easy for them in the end. But yeah, I think they're good differentials. Obviously, in these type of finals, buying players who will probably come on that aren't starting can be good differentials. But outside of João Pedro, there's no really solid starters across both teams this week. So, which makes me think that going makes it makes it very clear that the best formation to go with is just one striker up top, right? So I think that is cemented. Obviously, before we get to my transfer strategy, I think I can say that now and confirm that I will only have one striker this week, and that is very likely to be João Pedro. But you never know. Delap could start. We have to wait for those lineups to come out, don't we, on Sunday? So we definitely need to keep an eye on our lineups. But I do think João Pedro will start. So I don't really plan on, or don't at least have any provisional plans to get rid of João Pedro as it stands. So that is my forward line. Now let's take a look at my transfer plans for Matchday 7. So guys, moving on to my transfer plans this week, you can see that I'm considering 2 potential strategies. Now, just before we get into that, I think there's 2 ways, 2 really, really good, effective ways that you can gain rank in a final, whether that be a Euros fantasy final, a World Cup fantasy final, a UCL fantasy final. There are 2 ways to gain a lot of rank and quickly, and that is back the defense, fully back one of the defenses, right? So just as an example, in the last 5 or 6 Champions League finals, a team has kept the clean sheet. So in my experience, and I've benefited from this, I've lost ground on backing the wrong side to keep a clean sheet. Either way, there's a big swing in it. But for me, if for example, if you back the PSG clean sheet, you go 4 or 5 players with captaincy on top of that, and you can pick up a lot of points. And that is the same for Chelsea, right? So this is where my transfer plans come in, link up to that. So my first and primary transfer plan, one that I am considering the most, is to get rid of Garcia, Trent, Cucurella, Tosin, and Arias. And that would mean bringing in Marquinhos, Mendes, Beraldo, James, and Vitinha. So just on the defence alone, so I already have Donnarumma and I already have Hakimi. PSG would play with a back 5, including the goalkeeper, right? So they have 4 defenders and the goalkeeper. So if you own all of them and captain a defender, then you are going to get basically, 6 clean sheets worth of points, right? So that is how it works, and that is how you gain a lot of rank. So in the case of my first transfer plan, that is what the kind of I would be aiming for, right? So you're probably thinking, why would I take out Cucurella? Well, you have to own 3 Chelsea players this week. And for me, if Reece James starts, he is very likely to come off early. So if Chelsea manage to hold PSG back, that's a big if, James could well benefit earlier than any other Chelsea defender. If he starts, he could potentially play, around 60 plus minutes. He could come off, bank the clean sheet, and then Chelsea concede, and then you've then benefited from that Chelsea clean sheet, without backing the other defenders. So that is my primary plan. Also, Vitinha is chucked in there as well. I do think Vitinha gives me a nice alternative to Neto. I do like the thought of bringing in Vitinha. Obviously, he's not as consistent, but he takes penalties. Neto doesn't. I feel like he has the edge over Neto in this match. Now, whether or not, I keep Neto or start Neto or start Vitinha if I do this transfer strategy, I haven't made my mind up quite on that yet. It could also be another midfielder, right? There's so many kind of midfielders you can go for. You can have a punt on, like I said earlier, Enzo Fernandez. You could go for Caicedo, look to PSG in Doué or Barcola, or even a central midfielders, João Neves. So yeah, for now, Vitinha takes up that role. But I do think, the bulk, the PSG defensive stack is kind of my priority at the moment, my priority transfer plan. Now, if that wasn't the case, my second one is to back the Chelsea defence. Now, this is far riskier, right? You know, I am currently 61st in the world. So if I went ahead with the Chelsea stack and PSG scored, I would probably be in huge danger of exiting the top 100. But it's also very aggressive. So if that somehow came to pass, I've seen crazier things in the finals before. A lot of people thought that Manchester City would ease past Chelsea in the final a couple of years ago, and obviously, you know, Chelsea won. Yeah, we do see upsets in finals. You know, there are crazier things have happened. So if we see Chelsea keep a clean sheet, not many people are going to go for the Chelsea stack at the back, are they? You know, not many people are going to benefit from that Chelsea clean sheet. There'll be a couple of people who have one, you know, maybe two, but no one will have 4 or 5, you know, with captaincy, maybe even 6. So you have to consider that if you're looking to gain a rank and gain a big amount of rank fast in the last round, then backing a Chelsea defence is probably one of the ways to do it, which is why I'm considering it. You know, I'm in the top 100, which is great. You know, I would love to be in the top 50, top 25. You know, maybe even the top 10 if the Chelsea strategy works. So, and there are so many ways to gain rank this week. You know, there are singular differentials that you can do it with. You know, and I think there's only 2 attackers under 5% owned, and that's Caicedo and Barcola. But, you know, differentials don't have to be under 5% owned. They can be like under 10%. Just you know, not as owned by many of the elite kind of top fantasy managers. There's also obviously captaincy as well. You could go differential with captaincy, but the best way to gain rank is to stack up on defences. So it's a decision between the PSG and the Chelsea defence. I'm most likely to go for the PSG defence because I just want to secure a top 100 place finish. You know, again, if you offered me that prior to the competition, I would have jumped at that opportunity. But yeah, the second option would mean bringing in Reece James, potentially Chalobah if he started, Sanchez, and Vitinha again. Vitinha kind of again just a placeholder for another midfielder. So yeah, there are my transfer strategies heading into Matchday 7, and hopefully one of them works out. I'm not too sure which one I'm going to go for just yet, but yeah, that's me. So everyone, that was my final Club World Cup Fantasy team selection video until the next competition, that is. If you've enjoyed my video or my videos in general, please remember to both like and subscribe, especially subscribe. This is an unedited version of my outro, so there could be mistakes in here, but I just wanted it to be raw and straight to the point. I'm really thankful for those who've joined me along this journey. I was never supposed to launch for Club World Cup Fantasy, and, you know, just pushing it out there, getting all the graphics together, getting myself ready, you know, at least presentable in terms of my, you know, the quality of presenting, which has improved. It still needs a lot of work, but, you know, just trying to get it all out, trying to get it forced out was kind of 50-50. I wasn't completely sure of it, but now that I've done it, I'm really glad that I have. So again, for those that have stuck along this entire journey with me, this whole Club World Cup Fantasy journey with me, I'm super, super thankful for it. And to repay that, I'm looking to make a lot more content in the future across all fantasy games. So until next time, guys, see you soon.